wood that was abundant, and you had some rain, but that was about the only thing you had to deal with in terms of the elements. And I am quite certain that the Mayan calendar was created in that area and was not created by the Mayans at all, but by an even older culture that probably lived simply for hundreds, if not thousands of years without any desire to, quote, unquote, progress. They were probably living close to what, in our literature we describe as Eden or paradise, where they had everything they wanted, and they just weren't motivated in the way that modern man is motivated.
Well,
now,
fellas, let me ask both of you this. Okay, now the Mayans have all this mathematical input.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they also have a lot of astronomical
Absolutely.
insights?
Well, this is the thing. They're related. What the Mayans were able to do, and this is what I was getting to. So they're up in these mountains, and we don't have any smog. They have absolute clear visibility. And what are they doing in their free time, particularly at night? There's no TV. They're watching the stars, and they're making notes, and they're talking about it, and they're passing it from generation to generation. And they became incredibly accurate in their predictions of the movements of the planets, of the sun, of the moon, and most of their calendars were related to specific galactic events. Now it gets really Twilight Zone-y, if you will, because they start making these calendars which start before they even existed, supposedly, which end thousands of years after they're going to be gone, and which end up coinciding with galactic events that only in the last couple of decades has modern man even been aware of. And I'm referring specifically...
Well, now, Chet, your book also spoke of 26,000-year cycles, didn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely. The cycles, from a Western concept, long-term conceptual ideas of these giant cycles. I mean, the best that we've been able to do really have been centuries, and we could do better, but unfortunately, something like Bill said earlier, there's a kind of a conceit in Western modern man that wouldn't allow for those things. So it's not that this information hasn't existed. The Dogon in Western Africa, the Zulu even in Southern Africa, have all been saying the same kinds of things, but in order for this particular society or modern man to present himself and to hold on to power, it has to look at those things as not being relative to its position. And so that's what keeps us from not being able to truly, fully embrace the fruit of the December 21st date.
Chet, I haven't read your book yet, but I'm going to go out and get a copy and read it, because what you're saying is absolutely aligned with all of the research that I've done and with the real meaning of December 21st, 2012 as a window of opening for people to wake up and start integrating indigenous wisdom with modern wisdom. I don't want to throw away my refrigerator. I enjoy the Super Bowl. I enjoy a good cold beer. I like going out and playing golf. I'm not one of these, I don't know what you call them, woo-woo hippie types. That's not who I am. So I certainly respect people who want to live in nature and sort of are ultra ecology.
Well, Bill, we're coming right up against
my point is, okay.
We're coming right up against the hour break. Why don't you go ahead and mention your book and the website, and we'll take after that. We'll take a break for about 3 or 4 minutes.
My novel is one2thebook.com. It's the 12. I also have the Golden Motorcycle .com, which is a book I wrote with Jack Canfield, which talks about the same topics. We also have Tapping the Source Movie.com, which is a movie I co-produced that deals with some of these themes. Because it's not just about what the Mayans are saying, it's about what this date means for you and how you can take this date and use it to improve your own life and make a contribution to the world.
Nice.
Boy, how lucky of me to have Chet and you on that are positive types. I mean,
there
I don't know
no
where the hell you came
accidents,
from.
It's synchronicity.
I guess it is. Well, fellas, we're going to take about a 4-minute break, and we'll come back on and talk about some of these positive things. We'll be right back. Well, it's good to be back. I've got 2 excellent guests, and they're both have basically an optimistic tendency in this worldview. Chet and Bill are both very educated and good investigators, and have written some very good books. And let's see, Bill, Chet, yours is called Welcome to a Cooler World, and Bill, yours is called the
12.
The 12, okay.
Yep.
So I urge you all to go now. Let's see. Now, Chet's, yours is going to be at the middle of January, and Bill, has yours already been released, or is it?
My book is out. It's actually sold over 500,000 copies already.
Oh,
We're re-releasing it with chapters from my new book, The Power of the 12. The Power of the 12. I'm actually doing the final edits this month, so that book will not be published until September. But if you go out and get the ebook version, which is the re-release of the 12, you get chapters of The Power of the 12. And the bookstores are probably out of stock of the print versions right now, but I'm sure they'll be reprinting it again, and it'll be available again. But we're in 25 languages, and one of the things that amazed me was that in certain parts of the world, including Korea, Russia, Germany, and Portugal, we were like on the top of the bestseller list in those countries.
Oh, really?
In the United States, we sold well, but we didn't penetrate the top 10 or the top 20. New York Times list and things like that. So it was interesting to me that there was so much interest in 2012 outside of the United States, because a lot of people think it's just a local phenomenon, Mexico and the United States. But that's not actually the case.
Well, I'll tell you what, I could, in all honesty, if I sold 500,000 copies, I'd be so deep in the Adirondacks, the Rangers couldn't find me.
You don't make as much money on books as you think, but
right, that's the truth.
I write books because I really have something to say and I enjoy writing them, and the money is really secondary. And we were very close to having a major film made, and had that happen, we probably would have sold 5 million books. But we'll see what happens with the next one. But it's really, I do have a very positive, grounded message. And I am an optimist, but I don't ignore the fact that it's really critical what people do. We have positive trends. There's also negative trends. And the positive, which has been prophesized by many of these ancient civilizations, including the Maya, will not happen unless people wake up and start taking responsibility for their thoughts and actions on a daily basis. And to me, that is the real essence of what December 21st, 2012 is all about.
Right. Hey, Bill, I said this in my book, that it really, if we're operating like this as a cycle, kind of like winter, spring, summer, fall, right? Here we are in winter. We know that spring is coming. The time to or we're moving into spring. Mm-hmm. This is the time to plant the seeds if you wish to see the growth that would happen later in that time. So we kind of have to look at it in the same way that we look at the cycles of the year. I'm a big advocate for the whole aspect of thinking about this entire aspect as we do all cycles, because it makes us think about being prepared for the next phase. If we don't think about it in cycles, we think of it, again, in a linear context, we're not thinking about the preparation for the next phase. So as you were saying...
Yeah. Totally agree. One of the things, though, about the cycles, even the cycles that you mentioned, summer, winter, fall, there's sometimes destruction of the old before you can have the new.
Exactly.
And that's part of what we need to be sensitive to, and not overreact when something negative happens and say, oh, that's a sign that everything's over. No, that's a sign of the cycle changing, of, trees lose their leaves. Okay, it doesn't mean the tree is dying. It just means it's losing its leaves so that it can, refresh and come anew. And when you're looking at cycles, and in this case it's a 26,000-year cycle, wow, what is it that we're intended to be doing? I've worked very closely with Barbara Marx Hubbard, who talks about coevolution and how this is really an opportunity for human beings to connect in ways we haven't connected before and take responsibility for the evolution of this planet and this solar system at the highest possible level. And if you look at cycles from that perspective, it's not just about, am I going to make an extra $100,000 this year because I did X, Y, and Z? It's like, whoa, what is my bigger role as a human being? And of course, you need to make enough money so that you can pay for all the basics. But more importantly, you need to help direct the direction of humanity so these basics of, water, food, shelter, clean air, access to information are really the birthright of every human being in every part of the world. That needs to be a given.
Oh, I could certainly agree with that. Yeah.
As much as we believe that every person is born with the right to breathe. These are basic elements that we all are entitled to and that we all deserve. And it's not about what religion you are or what economic strata. And there's always going to be differentiation on the economics. There's always going to be some people who are more motivated by the material or more gifted in some way or, able to contribute in a way that the rest of society, whether it's creating the iPad or something else, is going to reward, with billions of dollars. Good. That's fine. But it shouldn't be at the same time that there's large numbers of people who are suffering and going without. And this is the kind of change the Mayans are talking about. They're talking about the change of a cycle. I think you said earlier, Chet, about the change from sort of a masculine-dominated era that may be ending and a feminine era, which is more about nurturance, more about taking care of everyone and not just enjoying the exhilaration of success. There's nothing wrong with the exhilaration of success and achievement, but having it balanced in a more communal way, if you will, a more harmonic way, and a way that identifies accurately that we are all part of a single human family, and even beyond human family, we're all part of life. And life has no favorites. All living beings and creatures, including plants and animals, participate in the same unlimited consciousness. We're men, women, we think we're at the top of the chain. We may not be, but even if we
I'm glad you all said that because, of course, I'm one of the highlights of my show, the Kevin Cook Show on Tuesdays, is we have a lot of animal rights issues, and I'm just a big animal lover. I'm not really a big people person, as you can probably figure out, but I love animals, and also, this may not be quite on topic, but I've had lots of shows which kind of indicate the scope of animals is a lot larger than people think, as far as like the dog that would we had James Rollins on a couple weeks ago, and he's a veterinarian, and we both shared stories of a dog that was, say, its owner died and was buried in a Moscow cemetery. The dog refused to leave the grave until he died himself 6 years later. He was sustained by visitors to the cemetery and, caretakers and so forth. But, I mean, we're talking about loyalty and love that goes way beyond, well, certainly more than my ex-wives. I mean, they would hang around 6 days. But and other ones like that. And all I'm saying is the mental state and abilities of animals is a lot more extreme. And I think we are seeing, I could be wrong, an appreciation for these things where we never did in past times. That's all.
Well, one of the things that I've learned from a variety of experiences, I also, and include this in the novel The 12, an experience I had of near death where I was clinically dead for probably only a couple of minutes, but the experience was quite compelling and introduced me to sort of the reality that we truly are eternal beings. We're eternal spirit beings, if you will, having a physical experience. And at the highest level, even our distinctions of animate and inanimate, alive and dead, is arbitrary. It's not, according to what I experienced, even true, because nothing actually dies. And everything, to some extent, has consciousness, even what we consider inanimate objects, glasses, chairs, and it's kind of mind-boggling. And I think people who've been on positive LSD trips have had these similar experiences. And
but Bill, let me. I'm sorry. But there's one story that kind of vindicates what you're saying. I don't know if either one of you are familiar with the remote viewing program the government had for years, or
MK Ultra.
Yes.
Well, no, this was the Stargate program. Paul Smith is a remote viewer friend of mine, and Joe McMoneagle was another
I know Joe.
participant. Well, what it amounts to is in one of the efforts at remote viewing, they and I don't remember which one it was. I think it was McMoneagle. Actually, the Hadrian's Wall, is it Hadrian's Wall that separates England and Scotland? Is that the wall that separated England and Scotland? I think is what it was at one time.
It could be, but the wall. Good.
At any rate, the wall was there, and somehow the remote viewer picked up on the wall having a negative cast, I guess, because of all kinds of conquests and battles around it or whatever. But I mean, talking about the inanimate object, yes, this inanimate object had a bizarre
memory,
feel to it. Yes, a memory where it was stone, it should have no memory.
Yeah, well, this is one of the interesting things. The Inca worshipped rocks.
They did?
They did. They worshipped rocks. And one of the reasons they worshipped rocks is they felt that the rocks contained the memories of all that had gone on in those areas for centuries. They were the strongest, least destructible object around. And many indigenous peoples have similar beliefs. And the point I'm getting to is we're really more than we give ourselves credit for. We may be less than we give ourselves credit for in some ways. But we have access